Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Camp Blood Media. Josh here. Today we'll be continuing our Wrong Turn reviews with Wrong Turn 2021. The Wrong Turn Reboot, directed by Mike P. Nelson and written by Alan B. McElroy, who also wrote the original Wrong Turn from 2003. So the movie opens with a father just coming to a small town in Virginia looking for his daughter and her friends who have been missing for 6 weeks. He takes a quick look around the town, he's told that they're not there and that he should just move on. However, he doesn't buy any of the stories he's hearing and he decides to keep looking. Then, we flash back 6 weeks to when the kids first get to the area and we get to see what happened to them. They end up arriving at the hotel and the owner tells them that if they're going to go hiking on these trails, to make sure that they actually stay on the trails, because if they don't, nature is not going to be very kind to them.
The land here can be unforgiving.
So of course, as they get there, they start hiking around and having fun, and eventually they decide to ignore the woman's wishes and they go off the trail to find some old war ruins. They get further and further and further into the woods and they start to think that maybe they've taken a wrong turn. So as they get going further, a trap ends up getting tripped.
What is that?
And this huge log ends up coming up over the hill and rolling down and crushing one of them against the tree in our first kill of the movie. It was actually very fast and didn't take very long to happen. So you didn't get to see a whole lot, you just kind of get to see the aftermath of him actually crushed up against the tree. But the effects of his head and body being crushed against the tree look really awesome. They do a great job with everyone's reactions. This is one thing that's definitely immediately better about this Wrong Turn movie versus the previous 6, is that everyone is actually a really good actor this time around. In the previous ones, we've had a few people who are okay actors and then some really bad actors, but across the board in this one, everyone does a really good job. They argue whether or not they're going to leave his body there because they decide they have to get out of the woods to get help.
You won't be alone.
Eventually, as they start going, it starts getting dark and they decide they have to camp out overnight because it's too dangerous to walk out overnight. But while they're sleeping, somebody comes and steals all their cell phones so they can't get any help from the outside world.
I thought I saw somebody outside the tent last night.
One of their friends actually goes missing, so they go looking for her. As they go looking for her, Adam, one of the friends, ends up getting his leg stuck in a trap and he's pulled underneath the ground. This leads the friends to think that they're being hunted by a group of killers. They eventually stumble upon a barn with a bunch of weapons and different old things from previous people inside. When they look outside, they see their friend being carried by these 2 guys with these antler masks and leaf suits all over them. They end up grabbing weapons and charging out after these 2 guys who are carrying their friend. One of these 2 antler guys is actually Damien Maffei from The Strangers, Pray at Night. He's a really awesome horror actor, so definitely check out his stuff if you haven't yet. These 2 guys don't say anything and they end up just dropping their friend to the ground, and the friend actually wakes up, grabs a tree branch, and bashes one of the 2 guys' heads in while the other one runs away. This is another case where they did actually a really good job with the gore effects. You don't see too much of it, but the sounds they put in and the little bit of it you do see of the crushed head, they did a really good job with it. The friends have a little bit of an argument about whether or not it was right to kill this guy because they don't actually know what's going on.
Did you just kill this man for no reason?
But as they start to leave, Darius steps on another trap. It's this big thing that swings down from the tree with spikes on it and it stabs him right in the shoulder. It probably could have easily killed him depending on where it hit him. So as some of the other friends start running away, their friend Mila ends up falling into a trap on the ground and she gets stabbed through the body with a bunch of spikes. Her boyfriend ends up finding her, but because of all the commotion going on and the people coming after them, he decides, screw you, and he takes off and leaves her there. One of the antler people ends up finding her though. She pleads for her life, but he ends up shooting her in the head with an arrow in our second kill of the movie. From here on, our group are captured and they're taken to the village of all these tree people, where they learn that this has kind of been like a huge misunderstanding and that these tree people were actually going to bring their friend to the bottom of the mountain and they weren't taking him to kill them, and that they killed one of the tree people without needing to. So they end up going on trial for the murder of these tree people, and because they don't tell the truth, they all get found guilty. They end up taking Adam, tying him up to this little pike, and they smash his head in him with a branch, the same branch that he used to kill the tree guy. The remaining 3 friends are basically going to be killed. One of them gets his eyes poked out and he's sent into this cell into the dark. The other 2 end up making a deal that they're going to become part of the village, and this is kind of where the first ending of the movie comes in. It's very strange because the movie kind of comes to a halt right here, where Jen and her boyfriend Darius decide to stay in the village. She becomes the wife of the main leader of the village, and he just becomes one of the fighters.
Can we ever leave?
Why would you want to?
This would probably be my biggest complaint about the whole movie. The father comes back into the story and the movie kind of takes a screeching halt for me. There's like a 10-minute sequence of the movie now where the father comes back to the town, we're back in present day, and he's looking for his daughter and talking to different people, and he ends up getting beaten up and told to leave the city. And while all the scenes were, I guess, necessary, this section of the movie was the worst for me. From here on, we're going to have spoilers for the end of the movie, so if you don't want to hear anything about that, look at the timestamp below and jump ahead so you skip over it. So the father ends up running into the lady at the hotel who says she saw his daughter and her friends and that she'll help him find them. She hooks him up with her nephew and his friend, and he takes them up the mountain saying that he will be able to get them to his daughter. It's kind of funny because they're not on the mountain for 2 seconds when both of his chaperones get killed right away. They literally get through one trap, and then the second trap takes both of them out and the father is left by himself immediately. I thought it was kind of funny because these guys were like, oh, we're gonna get our revenge, and then they just die instantly. It seemed like another part of the movie that kind of maybe didn't need to be in there, but it just extended it with more deaths, so I kind of see what they were doing. The father eventually makes it up to the camp of the Foundation, and they catch him. He ends up getting shot in the arm with an arrow, and it turns out it's his daughter that shot him. It seems like she's fully brainwashed at this point, but it turns out she did it so that the village wouldn't kill him and her right then and there, because while her father is locked up, she ends up sneaking over to free him, and they decide to escape together.
You shot me with an arrow.
They would have killed us both.
They go over and find Darius in one of the cabins, and he says that he loves it there. He feels like he belongs there and he's not leaving and he's gonna stay, but he won't stop them from leaving. So they leave Darius there and he ends up living to the end of the movie. He just stays there and you never see him again. However, these two decide to escape. They run into a little girl who Jen had an interaction with a few times throughout the movie, and she ends up leading them to the way out. The way out ends up being at the jail cell where they put all the people whose eyes they poke out. I guess it makes sense that if there was a way out there, no one would really be able to find it because their eyes are poked out, and anyone who did would just end up getting killed by the traps. So as they're going through this dark cell and finding their way out, they end up finding the friend Luis who had his eyes poked out, and Jen just shoots him right in the face to end his misery because she doesn't want him to stay there anymore. She makes zero attempt to help him out. She just shoots him right away, and her father is like, what is happening right now? Eventually they get in a scuffle with a few other tree people. The crazy tree girl from earlier ends up rushing at the dad. He shoots her in the face. Jen ends up getting in an altercation with one guy from earlier, and she ends up stabbing him like over and over again to the point where he's just like a pool of blood. Her and her father make it most of the way down the mountain, and they run into a group of people with guns who ends up being the people from the bar earlier in the movie who the dad was asking if they knew where his daughter was. One of them ends up getting killed by the tree people who are throwing knives, but they managed to escape and get away. I was actually kind of surprised here. I thought that all of the people who came to help them were going to die, and then her father and Jen were going to escape in the truck, but that's actually not what happened. Everyone ends up getting away except for that one guy, so it kind of surprised me. This is where we come to like our second kind of ending of the movie, where it cuts over to Jen being back home and with her father, and she's working for her father and everything's happy, and Jen asks her dad if he's coming over for a movie tonight, and he says, oh, for sure.
Boys pick something with inbred cannibals.
And she makes a joke about it being a movie about inbred cannibals, which I found to be a nice little reference to the actual original Wrong Turn movies. If you haven't figured it out by now, this movie has no mutants whatsoever in it. No three-finger, one-eye, sawtooth, none of that. Not one mutant to be seen in the entire movie. And that is my second biggest complaint about this whole movie. Basically, the star of the franchise, Three Finger, is nowhere to be seen. I understand maybe at this point, maybe they felt that the mutants were a little silly and they wanted to exclude them from the movie, but in my opinion, it's not a Wrong Turn movie without at least a Three Finger in it. And they could have even slid him in for a few moments at the end, like maybe he became one of the main fighters that they would send after people if they needed them killed or something like that. Even just a few minutes of Three Finger screen time would have been good and would have definitely helped out the movie. However, they decided to go the route of just having people up in the woods, and I find it takes a little bit away from the scariness factor of the movie because of it. So Jen leaves and returns home back to her father's house where her stepmother and her two stepbrothers living, and who ends up being inside but Chief Abernathy of the Tree People. There's like a quick sequence where she runs over the table, tries to stab him, he takes the knife and stabs her stepmother, kills her two brothers, then she ends up stabbing him in the back of the head and killing him, but her family's dead. For a second you're like, what the hell, is this how the movie is gonna end? And it turns out to just be a dream sequence. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of annoyed me just a little bit that they did that at the end of the movie. I kind of understand what they were going for, but I think it was unnecessary. So then we get to see the actual way it plays out. She asks her family to step away and she talks to him for a few minutes, and she says that if she comes with him, he has to promise to stay away from her family and never return. So he ends up agreeing and she leaves with him, and the movie ends. We get the end credits and you're just like, what the hell? She goes with him and that's it? The movie's over? over, I was actually kind of pissed off at the movie at this point. I was like, you're really gonna end the movie this way? But as the title sequence starts playing out, you see the RV start driving away and it veers off into a tree and crashes. You see Jen roll out of the RV with Chief Abernathy and she's stabbing the hell out of him. She kills him. There's another guy that starts running away. She throws the knife at him and she runs over and stabs the hell out of him and kills him too. And then after she finishes killing him, the little blonde girl from the movie walks over to her and grabs her and holds her hand, and they start walking towards us as the movie ends. Now that is what I wanted to see at the end of the movie. I did not want to see Jen taken off and have the tree people have their way with her for the rest of her life. I'm glad she was able to fight back and kill them all, and she ended up having a good ending at the end of this movie, because they really tried to fake us out a few times and give her a bad ending, and I'm really glad that they didn't actually end up doing that. So as for my thoughts on the movie, I would say that it looked really great throughout the entire movie. They did a really great job with the cinematography and just the general look of the movie. It was much higher quality than Wrong Turns 2 through 6, and even higher quality than the original Wrong Turn, which makes sense because it's from all the way back in 2003. I also really liked all the kills in the movie. I don't think they did a bad job with really any of the kills except for maybe Adam's, because they didn't quite show enough of the gore. I'm really glad that we stepped away from some of the overly elaborate kills from the previous Wrong Turn movies versus Wrong Turn 5, where they have a guy tied up in a pulley system and they're pulling him up into like electricity wires. That was incredibly stupid, so I'm glad that this movie didn't do anything like that. I also like the design of all of the costumes for the tree people. I really like the bone mass and the bone costumes with the leaves all over them. I think they did a really good job making them scary, even though that they weren't inbred cannibals like the previous Wrong Turn movies. The acting was excellent across the board. From side actors to the main cast, I think they all did a really great job and blew all previous 6 Wrong Turn movies completely out of the water. Jen herself was incredible. I loved her character a lot, actually. I think she was really strong, and I liked the way that she integrated herself into the village, only to then escape and fight against everybody with the skills that she learned, and then fighting them again at the end of the movie. I think they did a really great job with her character, and she's probably the best character since Elijah Dushku's character from the first movie. The fact that they couldn't even squeeze Three Finger into this movie for 2 seconds really bothered me, especially when the trailer alluded to this maybe being a sequel to the original Wrong Turn. Why would they even do that if this movie has literally no connection whatsoever to the original? In my opinion, it's a little misleading to say in the trailer that something happened in 2003 and now in 2021 something's gonna happen again. Like, why even reference the original Wrong Turn movie if this movie has literally nothing to do with it? They're in different universes completely. All in all, I think that Mike P. Nelson did a really great job with this movie. It's definitely better than like half of the other Wrong Turn movies, which I guess isn't saying that much because as they went on, they did get kind of bad. But this one is actually pretty decent for what it is. If you're going into this movie thinking it's gonna be as shitty as the last like 4 Wrong Turn movies, you're definitely going to be in for a nice surprise. However, if you're going into this movie expecting the mutants and kind of the feel of the other Wrong Turn movies, you're not getting that at all. It's a completely different storyline, different characters, has nothing to do with the previous 6 movies in the series at all. Did you get a chance to see Wrong Turn 2021 yet? Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought if you did see it, and if you haven't seen it yet, do you plan on seeing it? Let me know. Coming up next is my review for Wrong Turn 5 and Wrong Turn 6, so stay tuned for those. Alright guys, till the next one. Have a good one.